This guy's the worst. So Bill Gates, through one of his foundation projects, has been modeling infectious diseases ever since the Ebola outbreak. And he figures that some kind of Spanish flu-like epidemic would kill 33 million people in 250 days. What the hell is that about? Who models things out to 250 days? We all know it's just so they can get the number 33 into the headline of this article, right? Doesn't say how many people were killed in a year or 6 months. Just pick 250 days because that's when the death count that he's projecting reached 33 million, and then they can get that into this article. It's amazing. Now, I mean, I don't know if this is unrelated or if they're letting it out there to try to mutate, but this bird flu that's going on now, I think it's 14 states and 40 million birds have been killed already to try to get rid of this bird flu. They say the more chances that the flu has within the bird, the more likely it is, the more chances it has to mutate into something that can spread to humans. So that's why they're trying to kill the birds and prevent it spreading there, is what they say. So Gates goes on to say, and there's a video here, click it, watch it, just to watch this guy speak of death and all this. He always has this little smirk on his face, like he's trying not to laugh at what he's actually saying. You know, that duping delight kind of thing. He's ripe with it, this guy, when he talks about saving people. But he says, we've created, in terms of spread, the most dangerous environment that we've ever had in the history of mankind. So he uses language like that where he says, we've created. It just makes you think that him and his buddies have actually created this, and I kind of agree. So from the article, it says, look, this is Bill Gates, look at the death charts from the 20th century. And then the reporter says, because he's the kind of guy that looks at death charts. He says, I think everybody would say there must be a spike for World War I. Sure enough, 25 million people. Spike for World War II is about 65 million people. And then there's this other spike between them that was the Spanish flu. So, of course, he's rubbing his hands together, all excited. So he funded a model to figure out how the disease like the 1918 Spanish flu would work in today's world. He said, the results were shocking even to him. Within 60 days, it's basically in all urban centers around the entire globe. So that didn't happen with the Spanish flu, but if the Spanish flu were released today, that's what his model would say. 60 days in all urban centers, and then 33 million dead in 250 days. So the article goes on to quote our Ebola czar, Ron Klain. It says, with the pandemic flu, the disease would be much more contagious than Ebola. People who are contagious may not have any visible symptoms. It could break out more easily in a highly populated country that sends more people here than those West African nations. And it could be a country where sending in the 101st Airborne isn't possible. He also goes on about the World Health Organization and how their response was terrible. He says, what we're lacking, this is our Ebola czar, what we're lacking is the global system, a battalion of people in white helmets. But who will own that and control that? Who's going to pay for that and deploy that? Says these are tricky things that need to be worked out. And then Gates goes on, when you talk about war, there's all these rules. But when an epidemic comes along, who is supposed to survey the private capacity, so I'm guessing hospitals and things like that, and go out there and grab all those things? And saying what Ebola taught him was that there needs to be equivalent of like a military reserve. When something strikes, you get them on the phone to come down and quarantine the area, coordinate with local governments, militaries, and get things under control. He said, like with Klain said, with the white helmets, you know, this is what they're pushing for, a global medical surveillance force. I guess if they think, infection is popping up somewhere. And I'll put the link. We're just reading this article, the way it was written, and they'll go on to talk about zombies in there for no apparent reason. Like I mentioned before, like having to get the number 33 into this thing. The way the article's written, it's clear. Like they're basically telling you, like, this is what we've been trying to do here. It's going to be an epidemic. You know, we all thought that Ebola, if it was real in the first place, was like a test run. And it exposed how vulnerable everything is. And then Gates goes along with his little minions and runs this model on releasing a contagious, deadly flu. And he's like, whoa, cool. That was even surprised me. 60 days. We get all urban centers in 60 days. Awesome. So, I don't know. Hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully they don't release the flu. But with the Minnesota, I think it started up there. At least that's when I first heard about it. The chickens and the poultry up there. I mean, it's only a matter of time whether this happens naturally or not. And these guys are making sure it does happen a little quicker.